All right, good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the GI Jobs Virtual Career Expo. I am so honored to have with us today for the GI Jobs Virtual Career Expo keynote, Mrs. Mollie Raymond, who is the spouse of the Chief of Space Operations, General Jay Raymond. She is a native of St. Paul, Minnesota. I think they met at the Grand Forks, North Dakota base. She's got an MBA from the University of North Dakota. As you may imagine, she's very involved in the Key Spouse program and served as a mentor there. Her and General Raymond have been married for 34 years. 34 years. Three beautiful kids, Christine, Amy, and Gary. How old are they, Mollie? How old are your children?
26. Christina is 26, Amy is 25, and Gary's 22.
Very nice. And I also see on your bio 19 moves to Washington, D.C. Is that possible? 34 years?
Yes, we've been blessed to live all over. But yes, we are currently in Washington, D.C. This is our fourth time here, 4 times in Colorado Springs, 4 times in Vandenberg, and then some really fun opportunities in England, Rhode Island, and Japan. So we really have had some exciting places to live.
Yeah, that is cool. It takes me back to my Navy days, but I only did 9 years on active duty. It was nowhere near the number of moves that you've made, but that's pretty cool. So you, in your free time, you like to obviously spend time with family, do a lot of reading, and Peloton. Peloton's been in the news a lot lately, right?
Yes, it has, but it's just been a fun way to exercise at home. And we have a Space Force little biking group, and it's a nice way to connect with spouses and also guardians. So sometimes we all make a pact to meet up and try to beat each other.
Nice.
No competition, doesn't hurt anyone.
Absolutely. And yeah, so guardians, it's still relatively new. It's obviously not to you, the Space Force, because you and your husband are plank owners in that. And but wow, it's been I guess 2 full years now, right? I think December 20th of 2019, you celebrated your second birthday a couple of months ago.
Exactly. We just celebrated our 2nd year, so now we're starting our 3rd year. We now have about 13,000 guardians, and that's both active duty and civilian. And we are in the process of welcoming over 740 inter-service guardians, sailors, Marines, and soldiers are now coming over into the Space Force. It's really been such an honor. I'm so proud of my husband, but all of the guardians and their families to have this opportunity to witness history in the making. And I'm so proud or happy for our nation to have this 6th branch of the armed services to protect space, just like air, land, and sea. My husband often says that more people have used space before their first cup of coffee every day. And we just don't realize that our smartphones, our ATMs, our GPS services, banking, so many of our lifestyle, our prosperity, our way of life is dependent on our capabilities in space. And so our Space Force is there to protect us and to help the joint forces and keep our nation safe. So what an opportunity this is. And people are our best asset, and it's just really fun to be on this journey with our families and our loved ones and our guardians.
Yeah, it's super cool. And I appreciate the background on Space Force. I just think, you guys are in it, but so many people just know so little about that. And it's really good to get your insights, into it. Speaking of which, we've got a picture that we can show of your husband introducing some of the uniforms. And for some of our guests who've not maybe seen the uniforms yet, these are really cool, man. I mean, it is like, it's kind of what you would envision, right, for Space Force, which was the idea. but they're fantastic uniforms. I believe your husband, you said your husband's in an Air Force uniform there.
Yes, the uniform prototypes were showcased last September, and so they've been kind of under review by Guardians, and they've all been very well received, and I think they look so sharp, and so that's what we have to look forward to, are those amazing uniforms. And you know, it's been so fun just to be able to witness how the Space Force has built its culture, you know, from the uniforms, the blue tape on the uniforms, to the motto, Semper Supra, and which means always above. And then, you know, how Air Force bases have been changed to Space Force bases in their names, and which, you know, leads me to mention too how grateful we are to the Air Force for all the support of the Space Force. And, you know, we will continue to leverage the Air Force for all of our support programs, medical and security forces. And so we really are grateful to the Department of the Air Force.
Yeah, no, yeah, you know, I'm glad you mentioned that too, because I think some people probably assume, but yeah, Space Force does fall under the Department of the Air Force. Is that right? Yeah. Similar,
Yes.
I guess, to the Marine Corps and the Navy relationship.
Right.
So yeah, you mentioned these transfers. That's something I think a lot of civilians are completely unaware of, but it's kind of an obvious thing, right? When you're staffing a new branch of the military, you can't just bring people in from the ground up, right? You've got to staff it at all levels, and so you need all those experience levels. I'm assuming most of the transfers are coming from the Air Force. Is that right?
Well, so the career field of a space operator was transitioned over pretty quickly to the Space Force. And then we also looked for the career fields from the Air Force in acquisitions and cyber intelligence and engineering, and those folks asked to come over. And then, from the other services, they also applied, and typically it's those career fields that we, welcome them in. So there's a Lieutenant Colonel, Erica Teichert, works in my husband's office, and this is so cool. She just transferred over from the Marine Corps into the Space Force, and I had posted a picture of her on LinkedIn, and it was like blew up. It had over 40,000 views.
Nice.
It's just so exciting to see the enthusiasm of all of the services, all of our nation, to see this opportunity and to see this service grow.
Yeah, and it must be so rewarding for you and General Raymond to be like, I mean, the plank owners. I mean, you're the first people to occupy that, that position of leadership in a brand new branch of service. And it's amazing to think what it's going to be like 50, 100 years from now. I mean, the Space Force probably would be the most important, might be the most important branch of service that's out there, and the most relevant, with things that are going on. It's just, it must be really cool to think you've got a place in history like that.
Well, thank you. Jay and I are just extremely humbled to have this opportunity, but we are blessed to have so many wonderful guardians and so many wonderful teammates on this journey with us. And I always tell our families and our guardians that you are making history. You are a legacy for your families. And I'm so excited for those starting out in the Space Force now, because Jay and I are in the twilight years. But yeah, if you're a guardian starting out now and you get to witness where the Space Force is in 20, 30 years, how cool is that? And to be a part of that and to watch it grow and to be impactful because of what you contribute each day. So it's really exciting. My husband has been in the Air Force, Space Force for 38 years. And 2 years as a Space Force, 34 years as Air Force. So, we love our Air Force heritage as well. And very grateful for that. And but all those that are starting out in the Space Force, how cool is that? So
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. We have switched subjects a little bit and around military spouse employment. So our virtual career expo, this we're expecting around 25% of the attendees and the registrants to be military spouses, with obviously the other 75% being veterans or transitioning service members. Tell me about some of the challenges that you personally have seen. I mean, it's come a really, really, a long way, right? Since the days, I'll just tell you a quick story, if you don't mind, about my, when I was on active duty myself in the 90s, I was married, and everywhere we would move around to, people would see my wife's resume and it would say, Annapolis, Maryland, and Pensacola, Florida, and Jacksonville, Florida. And the natural next question was, oh, you must be a military spouse. And yeah, yes, I am. And then there was always this, well, okay, thanks, but no thanks, generally, because we know that you're going to be, leaving in a couple of years because, you're going to be transferred. Different story now. There's more awareness around that. There's more awareness around, I wouldn't say, I don't think military spouses are a protected class for labor laws, but they've got, the portability of jobs helps. And there's just a lot of awareness amongst employers that, military spouses are people that bring a lot of game, right, to a civilian employer. But tell me about some of the challenges that you saw in your time as a military spouse around employment.
yes, the lifestyle does create so many challenges, that's for sure. Military spouses are always, starting over, and oftentimes at a lower pay level, and have to battle relicensure. It is stressful and hard. And as far as you mentioned, I graduated from the University of North Dakota. Up until that point, I grew up in Minnesota, and it's not a heavily populated military community. And I lived in the same house, same neighborhood, same community, high schools, until I went to college. And I never had to move and transition like those in the military before. And so I graduated, and then all of a sudden we got our first orders to California, and never moved before, but I was so excited to start my career. And we got to California, and it was just so hard to find a job. It was so hard to network, so hard to find resources. And I was really frustrated, and I wanted a job in marketing. I couldn't find anything, so I settled, which a lot of military spouses do. My first job was a substitute teacher. I said it's all I could find, and I'll never forget this. My first assignment was in high school for an auto hobby skills class, which couldn't have been more underqualified for, but eventually, through some volunteer work and just trying to, talk to as many people as I could in the community, I did find a job in marketing, and I loved it. And then about a year later, we had to move to Colorado. And so again, struggled to find a job in Colorado. And so I worked for the first 8 years that we were married, and then we had 3 children, and we had 3 children in 4 years, and then a move to England. And then working overseas is another challenge. And then after that, we had 4 one-year moves, and I just got weary. It was, Jay then was traveling, deployed, gone, and I just kind of threw in the towel for employment. So, and I know the challenges that spouses have, but I'm really grateful for opportunities that are available today for spouses, for what you do. spouses do have more resources, do have more opportunities, and I couldn't be more excited for spouses today.
Yeah, no, it's, some of those challenges, you mentioned some of those challenges, it's amazing. Civilians, one of the things that I learned when I, transitioned out of active duty and got into the private sector is, civilians make a big deal out of going on a business trip for a week, right?
Yeah.
In the military, it's, well, I'll see you in 6 months or maybe 12 months or maybe longer,
Right.
and, and back then there was no email, right? Back in the 90s or even
Right.
there wasn't email. I
Or
remember
cell
calling,
phones. I mean,
yeah,
we
no
were.
cell phones, right? I remember calling my wife from Iceland and it was like $5 a minute or something to use the telephone. And so, yeah, it's just things have definitely changed. And yeah, I just don't think people understand. I don't think the civilian world really understands a lot of the challenges that are placed upon military spouses. We've said, before, military spouses don't get paid for their jobs. They have jobs, they're important jobs, but they don't get paid for those jobs. They don't ask for pay for those jobs. They're selfless and they really are the force behind the force. And you did it for 34 years, and my hat's off to you and all the other spouses who do it, because it's a very rewarding life, but it is definitely one that's that has its challenges, and hats off to you for that. Tell us any last minute things, or we'll begin to wrap up here, but any nuggets of advice for the military spouse community, either employment related or just things that you kind of want to mention to that audience.
Sure. Well, specifically for those spouses that are seeking employment, as I mentioned, no resources. You have the Get Hired workshop. That's awesome. There's also MySeco spouse education and career opportunities from Military OneSource, military spouse employment partnerships, where companies are committed to recruiting, hiring, training, promoting spouses, just like you highlight, Chris, those spouse-friendly companies, and look to those companies that are dedicated to hiring military spouses. And then also, career hiring our heroes have the Career Forward program and fellowships and USO Pathfinder, and there's just so many more resources out there today. Another piece of advice are, capitalize on the strengths of being a military spouse. We are so resourceful. We know how to get the job done. I met a spouse who, her family had received orders to move to Los Angeles, high cost of living area. So a second income was really going to help their family. And she, first of all, decided to do a do-it-yourself move. And so she's, scheduled it, organized it, prepared for it. Not only that, but got our kids all transitioned out of school and getting them ready to move to Los Angeles. And she applied for a job with a construction company as an administrative assistant, I believe. And she called while she was in the U-Haul driving across country. And, she shared with them all the things that she does as a military spouse. And they did not hire her for administrative assistant. They went straight to operations manager.
Nice. That's awesome.
And she rocked it out of the park as an operations manager, because that's, we are hardworking, we are loyal, we are trustworthy, we want to work. All of those things that an employee would be so fortunate to have. And another thing, we live in throughout the world, and throughout the country. And I think we have a diversity of thought, and we bring more ideas and maybe, experiences, compassion, I think, to the team. So capitalize on those strengths, because military spouses have so much to offer by the nature of our lifestyle. So capitalize on your strengths. And then other nuggets of advice are to continue to always network. Like you're having the hiring expo, and that's a wonderful opportunity. And I do believe in LinkedIn. I think it's a super professional platform. You can connect with folks that maybe you wouldn't connect with on your social media, but or personal platforms. But I have benefited myself from connections on LinkedIn, and welcome anybody to connect with me. But so connection, and then you never pass up opportunities. You know, you may not feel qualified, you may feel it's out of your comfort zone, but we learn so much from those experiences. Even if we fail, you learn something from it. So lead where you are, share your ideas, your thoughts. And then I would say, don't ever give up your dreams, because as military spouses, oftentimes we do settle, we do get tired, we lose our identity, but keep up the good fight. And, you know, you deserve to work if you want to, and keep at it and don't give up, and know that you are valued, and that employers would be so fortunate to hire you.
Yeah, no, great advice. I wrote down diversity, networking, don't pass up opportunities, don't give up on your dreams. That's great advice. We hired a Marine Corps spouse this past last year for our CS manager, our client success manager. And we were actually hiring for just this client success representative. And she came in and just blew the doors off the interview. And her name is Rachel Pitts. She is just, she's outstanding, and we're so fortunate to have her. And wish we had more. I wish we had more openings so we could hire more, because just a big believer in all the things that you say. You know, and it's that diversity too. You mentioned that, you take that for granted, right? You're in so many different places. You've got, I mean, you lived overseas, you lived in all parts of the country. You've had to be, you know, you've had to do things that, you know, not a whole lot of people have to do as a parent, and oftentimes a geo bachelor parent, right? That you got to figure stuff out, right? And that's what employers are looking for. I mean, work by its very definition is solving problems. And being resourceful is a really, really great way to do it. You're not looking for a checklist on how to do it. You guys just figure it out. So yeah,
Exactly.
great advice.
Well, thanks. And, you know, yeah, as I tell my kids, you know, when they had the fortunate opportunities to live overseas, they were ambassadors of our country, and you learn a sense of decorum. And
Yeah.
I think that those experiences have made them successful in their endeavors, and that's, you know, they offer that to their employers, and that's what military spouses and veterans, you know, you know, companies are so fortunate to have you apply, and you just bring so many wonderful talents and skill sets to their team. So another thing I would say too is to volunteer, especially during gaps of employment. I did have a part-time job a few years ago, and I found it I started volunteering with something that I loved, and then I ended up being hired for that. So yeah, and congratulations to Rachel. Thanks for hiring her.
Yeah. We're the ones who are blessed. Yeah, for sure. And but no, listen, thank you so much for spending time with us. By the way, we're a marketing company, so you got a marketing
Okay.
background. Just saying, you know.
Thank you.
Yeah, absolutely. But thank you so much for spending some time with us today, and congratulations to the Space Force and all the 13,000 people that make that up, and the spouses, and to you and your husband. Just I don't know, just it's a proud American moment to be able to talk with you. But that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for joining us. You've been joined here by Mollie Raymond, the spouse of the Chief of Staff of the Space Force, the Chief Space Force officer. And we are just pleased to have her here today. We hope you all have a good time. There's lots of employers that want to talk to you. out there at the Virtual Career Expo. So by all means, knock on those doors virtually and have some great conversations and get hired. That's all we've got. Thanks so much. Bye.
Semper Supra.
Semper Supra.